What would you do if you were trapped in complete darkness deep inside a cave with no way out? Imagine being lost for days with no food, no water, and no hope of rescue. This is the chilling, true story of two young cavers, Dale and Randy, who entered Perkins Cave for a fun adventure, but found themselves fighting for survival. Their only flashlight died, leaving them lost in a maze of endless tunnels. But how did they survive days in the cold, dark abyss? And who, or what, finally found them? We will provide you with well-researched information. If you want to support us, please take a second to click and subscribe. This is going to help and motivate us to bring more valuable content to your fingertips. Introduction to Perkins Cave. Welcome to Perkins Cave, a fascinating underground maze located in Missouri. This incredible cave is known for its extensive network of passages, stretching over 10 miles, and its stunning natural formations. The main entrance is hidden in a small sinkhole, and it's protected by a gate in order to preserve the cave's delicate environment. Once inside, you're going to find yourself in a complex maze of tunnels, many of which require crawling. Some of the most famous crawls include the 800-foot crawl, the 200-foot crawl, and the Torn Peter tube. The cave has multiple levels, with a vertical drop of nearly 300 feet, and its passages spread out over 2,200 feet horizontally. Perkins Cave is famous for countless small calcite formations, such as helictites, soda straws, and flowstone. These formations were created over thousands of years by mineral-rich water dripping through the limestone. The cave is formed in the Tunnel-Away Formation, a type of Silurian limestone, and its passages follow natural cracks in the rock called joints. These joints run in north-northeast and south-southwest direction, giving the cave its unique layout. The cave is managed by the Appalachian Cave Conservancy, which works to protect its natural beauty while allowing cavers to explore and learn about this underground wonder. To make exploration safer and easier, the Conservancy has added ladders, safety lines, and stepping stones in certain areas. They've also marked trails with nylon cord in order to help visitors avoid damaging the delicate formations. Perkins Cave is divided into three main sections. First, there's the main and historic section. This is the most explored part of the cave, with over 3 miles of passages. It features large rooms filled with breakdown boulders, muddy crawls, and stunning formations like the Forest Trail, which is lined with stalagmites and columns. Other highlights include the first and second discovery rooms and the Antlers passages, known for their unusual helictites. The second is the Dom, or Dirty Old Men section. This area is accessed through a tight squeeze and includes about a mile of passages, many of which are low crawls. One of the most interesting spots here is the Atlantis area. And then 3, the 800-foot crawl and beyond. This section is less explored and features streams, canyons, and fewer formations compared to the other areas. It's a challenging but rewarding part of the cave for experienced cavers. Perkins Cave is not just a place for adventure, it's also a treasure trove of natural beauty. From the massive white flowstone in the White Room to the floating calcite rafts in Second Discovery, every corner of the cave offers something unique. The Ghost Town area, the Coffin Formation, and the countless helictites and gypsum crusts make this cave a must-see for anyone who is interested in geology or caving. The excitement of exploration. On Thursday, September 20th, 1979, at around 9:30 p.m., 2 young cavers, Dale Campbell and Randy Welch, all set out to explore Perkins Cave near Montreal, Missouri. Both were filled with excitement and anticipation, as Perkins Cave was renowned for its intricate maze of passages and breathtaking formations. They had been planning this trip for weeks, meticulously gathering their gear and studying maps of the cave. They packed light, bringing only the essentials: a single flashlight, some snacks, a small amount of water, and cigarette lighters as a backup. Little did they know, what began as a routine exploration would soon turn into a life-threatening ordeal that would test their courage, endurance, and will to survive. Now, Dale and Randy were no strangers to caving. Both had explored smaller caves in the area, and they were confident in their abilities. Perkins Cave, however, was a new challenge for them. They had heard stories about its long, twisting passages, tight crawls, and stunning calcite formations. The cave's reputation as a complex and beautiful underground labyrinth had drawn them in, and they were eager to experience it for themselves. That evening, the weather outside was cool and crisp, typical of a late September night in Missouri. The sky was clear, and the moon cast a soft glow over the rolling hills. Inside the cave, however, the temperature was a constant 55 degrees Fahrenheit, chilly enough to make them shiver if they stayed still for too long. The contrast between the warm autumn air outside and the cold, damp environment of the cave added to the sense of adventure. As Dale and Randy stepped into Perkins Cave through the grated sinkhole entrance, they were filled with excitement and energy. The thrill of exploring a new cave was written all over their faces. They laughed and joked with each other, their voices bouncing off the narrow walls of the cave, creating echoes that made the place feel alive. The cave was dark and quiet, with only the occasional sound of water dripping from the ceiling to break the silence. The cool, damp air surrounded them, and the temperature inside, as said, was much colder than the warm autumn night outside. As they moved deeper into the cave, they couldn't help but admire the natural beauty around them. The walls were covered with stunning calcite formations, including delicate helictites that twisted in all directions, and also smooth flowstone that looked like frozen waterfalls. Every step brought something new to see, and they took their time exploring, feeling like adventurers who had discovered a hidden world. Now, for the first 2.5 hours, everything went perfectly. They crawled through tight, narrow passages, sometimes on their hands and knees, and they climbed over large boulders that had fallen from the cave ceiling long ago. They navigated the cave's many twists and turns, feeling a sense of accomplishment with every new section they explored. The cave was like a giant maze, and they were determined to see as much of it as they could. As Dale and Randy moved deeper into Perkins Cave, their only flashlight started to grow dim. Now, at first they didn't worry too much about it. They thought that the batteries were just running low, but they also felt confident that they had enough light to find their way back to the entrance. They'd been exploring for a while, and everything had gone smoothly so far. The cave was fascinating, with its twisting passages and beautiful rock formations, and they were having a great time. But about a half hour later, the flashlight suddenly went out completely. The cave was instantly plunged into total darkness. The excitement that they had felt earlier vanished, replaced by a growing sense of fear. The cave, which had seemed so full of adventure and wonder, now felt like a trap. The darkness was so thick that it was almost suffocating. They couldn't see their hands in front of their faces, let alone the walls or passages around them. Desperate for some light, they took out their cigarette lighters. Small flames appeared, but they weren't strong enough to light up the huge darkness of the cave. The lighters only gave off a tiny bit of light, barely enough to see a few inches in front of them. They tried to use them to find their way, but the flames didn't last long. One by one, the lighters went out, leaving them completely stuck in the pitch-black cave. Without any light, Dale and Randy were completely lost and confused. They tried to feel their way back to the entrance, crawling on their hands and knees through the narrow passages. But the cave was like a giant maze, with twists and turns that all looked the same in the darkness. They couldn't tell which way they had come from or which way led to the exit. Every passage seemed to lead them deeper into the cave, and they quickly realized that they were going in circles. They called out to each other, their voices shaky and filled with fear. But the cave's thick walls swallowed their cries, and no one could hear them. The cold air of the cave began to creep into their bodies, making them shiver uncontrollably. To stay warm, they huddled close together, sharing what little body heat they had. The exhaustion from crawling and the stress of being lost eventually overwhelmed them. They would doze off for short periods, only to wake up feeling even colder and more disoriented than before. Trapped in the dark, cold depths of the cave, Dale and Randy faced a desperate struggle for survival. With no food or water left, their situation grew worse by the day. Dale was badly hurt, his leg causing unbearable pain with every move, while Randy tried to keep their spirits up with stories and hopes of rescue. But as time passed, even Randy began to lose hope. The endless darkness, the freezing cold, and the maze-like cave all wore them down, both physically and mentally. Despite their worsening condition, though, Randy refused to give up. They were trapped in a nightmare with no way out and no idea if anyone was even looking for them. The adventure that they had been so excited about had turned into a fight for survival. All they could do now was to hold on to each other and hope that help would come before it was too late. Search and rescue. Meanwhile, just a few miles away, a group of experienced cavers were attending the fall meeting of the Middle Mississippi Valley region of the National Speleological Society, also known as the NSS. These cavers were passionate about exploring caves and were always looking for new adventures. During the meeting, they were told about Perkins Cave, a complex and fascinating cave located nearby. Intrigued, 3 of the cavers decided to check it out. On Sunday morning, they arrived at Perkins Cave, ready for a day of exploration. They geared up with headlamps, ropes, and other equipment and entered the cave. As they made their way through the passages, they suddenly heard faint voices echoing through the darkness. Now, at first, they thought that it might be their imagination, or the sound of water dripping in the cave. But as they stopped and listened carefully, they realized that it was the sound of people calling for help. The group immediately sprang into action. They followed the voices, crawling through tight, narrow passages and climbing over large boulders. After what felt like an eternity, they finally reached Dale and Randy. The 2 lost cavers were in bad shape, weak, cold, and dehydrated from days without food or water. But they were alive, and that was all that mattered. The cavers quickly gave Dale and Randy some food and water to help them regain their strength. They wrapped them up in emergency blankets to warm them up and checked for any serious injuries. Once they were sure that Dale and Randy were stable, the rescuers began the difficult task of leading them out of the cave. The journey out of the cave was slow, difficult, and exhausting. Dale's injured leg made it almost impossible for him to crawl through the narrow passages, so the rescuers had to help him every step of the way. They supported him as he moved, carefully guiding him over rocks and through tight spaces. Randy, though completely worn out, tried his best to help, but it was very clear that both boys were at their breaking point. They were weak, cold, and barely able to keep going. The rescuers used their headlamps to light the path ahead, making sure that they didn't take any wrong turns in the cave's confusing maze of tunnels. Every step was a challenge, and the cave seemed to go on forever. But the rescuers didn't give up. They kept encouraging Dale and Randy, telling them that they were almost there. Even though it was tough, they were determined to get the boys out safely. After what felt like hours of struggling through the dark, damp passages, they finally saw a glimmer of light ahead. It was the cave's entrance. As they stepped out into the open, the sunlight was so bright that it hurt their eyes after days of being in total darkness. The fresh air felt amazing, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Dale and Randy felt a sense of relief. They were finally free from a cave that had trapped them for so long. Dale and Randy were quickly taken to a nearby hospital. They were treated for dehydration, hypothermia, and minor injuries. The doctors and nurses took good care of them, giving them fluids, warm blankets, and medicine for their pain. Despite everything that they had been through, both boys made a full recovery. They were incredibly grateful to the cavers who had risked their own safety in order to rescue them. This story of Dale and Randy's harrowing experience in Perkins Cave serves as an important lesson for both cavers and authorities. If the local authorities had searched the cave and had failed to find the boys, they might have been lost forever. It was only by chance that the experienced cavers from the National Speleological Society, or NSS, just happened to explore the cave and thus heard their cries for help. This highlights the need for better communication and cooperation between local authorities and organized caving groups in areas with caves. When cave accidents do happen, authorities should reach out to experienced cavers who have the skills and knowledge necessary to conduct effective rescues. Dale and Randy's story also shows the dangers of exploring caves without proper preparation or equipment. They entered the cave with only a single flashlight and no backup light sources, which put them in a life-threatening situation when their only light failed. This is something that no organized or experienced caver would do. Organized cavers always carry extra lights, batteries, and emergency supplies, and they plan carefully before entering a cave. Unfortunately, Dale and Randy were not part of any caving organization, and they didn't have the training or resources to be able to handle the challenges they faced. In the end, this story is a reminder of just how important it is to be prepared and to respect the dangers of caves. It also shows the value of organized caving groups and the need for authorities to work with them in emergencies. Caves can be beautiful and exciting, but they can also be unpredictable and dangerous. By working together and following safe practices, we can ensure that cave exploration remains an adventure, not a tragedy. Dale and Randy were lucky to survive this ordeal, but their story should inspire others to learn from their mistakes and take caving safety seriously. If you enjoyed this thrilling tale, do us a favor. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and make sure to share it with your friends. Stay tuned for more amazing stories by hitting that subscribe button and also turning on the notification bell. Your support helps us bring more well-researched, exciting content to your screen. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you in the next adventure.